we just learned that Percy is the son of the sea god, no other than the almighty Poseidon. I feel like we had clues kind of the whole time. He became one with the plumbing. He cured himself when he got in the water. And then at the very beginning, the water just seemed to attack Nancy Boba Fett. So we kind of had clues the whole time, but we finally know, and Poseidon finally claimed Percy. So we are on chapter 9, page 127, if you're following along with me in the book. The next morning, Huron moved me to cabin 11. I didn't have to share with anybody. Had plenty of room for all my stuff. The Minotaur horn, one set of spare clothes, and a toiletry bag. I got to sit at my own dinner table, pick out all my own activities, call lights out whenever I felt like it, and no one to listen to. And I was absolutely miserable. I would also be miserable because I don't like to be by myself. I like to be surrounded by other people. And just when I started to feel accepted, to feel like I had a home in cabin 11, and I might be a normal kid, or as normal as you can be when you're a half-blood, I'd been separated out as if I had some sort of rare disease. Nobody mentioned the hellhound, but I got the feeling they were all talking about it behind my back. The attack had scared everybody. It sent two messages. One, that I was the son of the sea god, and two, monsters would stop at nothing to kill me. They could even invade the camp that had been always considered safe. The other campers steered clear of me as much as possible. Cabin 11 was too nervous to have sword class with me after what I'd done to the Ares folks in the woods. So my lessons with Luke had become one-on-one. He pushed me harder than ever and wasn't afraid to bruise me up in the process. You're going to need all the training you can get, he promised, as we were working with the swords and flaming torches. Now let's try the Viper beheading strike again. 50 more repetitions. Annabeth still taught me Greek in the morning, but she seemed distracted. Every time I said something, she scowled at me, as if I'd just poked her between the eyes. After lessons, she would walk away muttering to herself, "Quest. Ugh, Poseidon. Dirty, rotten. I've just got to make a plan." Even Clarice kept her distance, though her venomous looks made it clear she wanted to kill me for breaking her magic spear. I wish she would just yell or punch me or something. I'd rather get into fights every day than just be ignored. Poor Percy. I knew somebody at camp resented me because one night I came to my cabin and found a mortal newspaper dropped inside the doorway, a copy of the New York Daily News, open to the Metro page. The article took me almost an hour to read because the angrier I got, the more the words floated around on the pages. Boy and mother still missing after a freak car accident. So this is the newspaper article that somebody put in his room. Sally Jackson and son Percy are still missing 1 week after their mysterious disappearance. The family's badly burned 79 Camaro was discovered last Saturday on North Long Island Road with the roof ripped off and the front axle broken. The car had flipped and skidded for several hundred feet before exploding. Mother and son had gone for a weekend vacation to Montauk, but left hastily under mysterious circumstances. Small traces of blood were found in the car and near the scene of the wreck, but there were no other signs of the missing Jacksons. Residents in the Royal area reported seeing nothing unusual around the time of the accident. Miss Jackson's husband, Gabe Ungliano, claims that his stepson, Percy Jackson, is a troubled kid who has been kicked out of numerous boarding schools and has expressed violent tendencies in the past. Police would not say whether Percy is a suspect in his mother's disappearance, but they have not ruled out foul play. Below are recent pictures of Sally and Percy Jackson. Police urge anyone with information to call the following toll-free Crime Stoppers hotline. The phone number is circled in black marker, and I wadded up the paper and threw it away, then flopped down on my bunk bed in the middle of the empty cabin. Lights out, I told myself miserably. That night, I had the worst dream yet. I was running along the beach in a storm. This time, there was a city behind me. Not New York. The sprawl was different. Buildings spread far apart, palm trees and low hills in the distance. About 100 yards down the surf, 2 men were fighting. They looked like TV wrestlers, muscular with beards and long hair. Both wore flowing black tunics, one trimmed in blue and the other in green. And they grappled with each other, wrestled, kicked, and headbutted, and every time they connected, lightning flashed, and the sky grew darker, and the wind rose. I had to stop them. I didn't know why, but the harder I ran, the more the wind blew back, until I was running in place, my heels digging uselessly in the sand. Over the roar of the storm, I could hear the blue-robed one yelling to the green-robed one, "Give it back! Give it back!" Like kindergartners fighting over a toy. So remember, this is just a dream. The waves got bigger, crashing onto the beach, spraying me with salt. I yelled, "Stop it! Stop fighting!" And the ground shook. Laughter came from somewhere underneath the earth, and a voice so deep and evil, it turned my blood to ice. "Come down, little hero," the voice cooed. "Come down." The sand split beneath me, opening up a crevice straight down to the center of the earth, and my feet slipped, and the darkness swallowed me. I woke up. Sure, I was falling. I was still in my bed in cabin 3, and my body told me it was morning. But it was dark outside, and thunder rolled across the hills. The storm was brewing. I hadn't dreamed that. I heard a clopping sound at the door, and a hoof knocking on the threshold. "Come in." Grover trotted inside, looking worried. "Mr. D wants to see you." "Why?" "He wants to kill, I just better let him tell you." Grover, that's a good way to make him feel better, isn't it, guys? Nervously, I got dressed and followed. Sure, I was in huge trouble. For days, I had been half expecting to be summoned to the big house. But now that I was declared son of the sea god, one of the big 3 gods who were not supposed to have kids, I figured it was a crime for me to even be alive. The other gods had probably been debating the best way to punish me for existing, and now Mr. D was ready to deliver the verdict. Over Long Island Sound, the sky looked like ink soup coming to a boil. A hazy curtain of rain was coming our direction. I asked Grover if we needed an umbrella. "No," he said, "it never rains here unless we want it to." I pointed at the storm. "What the heck is that then?" He glanced uneasily at the sky. "It'll pass around. Bad weather always does." I realized he was right. In the week I'd been there, it had been never even been overcast. The few rain clouds I'd seen had skirted right around the edge of the valley. But this storm, this one was huge. At the volleyball pit, the kids from the Apollo cabin were playing a morning game against the satyrs. Dionysus twins were walking around in the strawberry fields, making the plants grow. Everybody was going about their normal business, but they looked tense. They kept their eyes on the storm. Grover and I walked up to the front porch of the big house, and Dionysus sat at the pinochle table in his tiger print Hawaiian shirt with his Diet Coke, just as he had on the first day. Huron sat across the table in the fake wheelchair. They were playing against invisible opponents, 2 sets of cards hovering in the air. "Well, well," Mr. D said, looking up. "Our little celebrity." And I waited. "Come closer," Mr. D said. "And don't expect me to bow down to you, mortal, just because your old barnacle beard is your father." A net of lightning flashed across the clouds, and thunder shook the windows of the house. "Blah, blah, blah," Dionysus said. Huron feigned interest in the pinochle cards, and Grover cowered by the railing, his hoofs clopping back and forth. If I had it my way, Dionysus said, I would cause your molecules to erupt in flames. We'd sweep up the ashes and be done with a lot of trouble. But Huron seems to feel this would be against my mission as the at this cursed camp to keep you little brats safe from harm. Spontaneous combustion is a form of harm, Mr. D, Huron put in. Nonsense, Dionysus said. Boy wouldn't feel a thing. Nevertheless, I've agreed to restrain myself. I'm thinking of turning him to a dolphin instead, sending you back to your father. Mr. D, Huron warned. Ugh, all right, Dionysus relented. There's one more option, but it's deadly foolish. Dionysus rose, and the invisible players dropped their Dionysus rose, and the invisible players' cards dropped to the table. I'm off to the Olympus for the emergency meeting. If the boy is still here when I get back, I'll turn him into Atlantic bottlenose dolphin. Do you understand? And Perseus Jackson, if you're at all smart, you'll see that's a much more sensible choice than what Huron feels you must do. Dionysus picked up a playing card, twisted it, and it became a plastic rectangle, a credit card, a security pass. And he snapped his fingers. The air seemed to fold and bend around him. He became a hologram, then a wind, and he was gone, leaving only the smell of fresh pressed grapes lingering behind. Huron smiled at me. He looked tired and strained. Sit, Percy, please. And Grover? We did. Huron laid his cards on the table, a winning hand he hadn't got to use. Tell me, Percy, he said, what did you make of the hellhound? Just hearing the name made me shudder. Huron probably wanted me to say, heck, it was nothing. I eat hellhounds for breakfast. But I didn't feel like lying. It scared me, I said. If you hadn't shot it, I'd be dead. You'll meet worse, Percy, far worse, before you're done. Done? Done with what? Your quest, of course. Will you accept it? I glanced at Grover, who was crossing his fingers. Sir, I said, you haven't told me what it is yet. Huron grimaced. Well, that's the hard part, the details. Thunder rumbled across the valley, and the storm clouds had not reached the edge of the beach. As far as I could see, the sky and the sea were boiling together. All right, we're going to stop there. What I want you to do, head over to Google Classroom, and I want you to make this prediction. So Huron is about to offer Percy a quest. Based on the character traits you know about Percy and what we've learned about Percy so far, do you think he is going to accept the quest, yes or no, and why? And what character, if you do think he accepts it, what character trait do you think he has that's making him accept it? Or if he doesn't, what character trait do you think he's going to deny the quest with? Alrighty, guys, have a great afternoon. See you later.